Hello and welcome to Hanoi, and we're standing by the side of the historic Hoan Kiem Lake, right in the center of Hanoi. And we've come to give you a little bit of a flavor of how Hanoi, the Vietnamese capital, is preparing for this summit. The eyes of the world will be very much on Hanoi this week in anticipation of the summit, which starts on Wednesday, where President Donald Trump is going to sit down with Kim Jong-un, the leader of the DPRK, to discuss all issues nuclear. What's going to come with that meeting at this stage, nobody really knows. Although here in Hanoi, we saw a briefing with the Deputy Foreign Minister today saying that they hope that this will be seen as a venue for peace. Hanoi, the city of peace, it's being advertised as. Now, if we just turn the camera around here, this is very much at the center of Hanoi. Up here where the camera is pointing, it goes into the old quarter. This is an ancient city, recognized by UNESCO for its more than 1,000 years of history. And that is slightly complicated for this meeting because much of the city is really not very easily navigable. Security is going to be a major issue. In fact, all of this area yesterday was fenced off by the police. Cars weren't allowed in, and it was only pedestrian access was being given. We think that's now changed because there was a thought that Kim Jong-un might be staying off to my left. We understand that the venue for his residence during the 2 days that he'll be in Hanoi is going to be in another part of the city. So, as you can see, there is an awful lot of traffic here. This is a very busy city. Cutting it off completely to traffic would be very, very complicated and very, very disruptive. We also heard from the Deputy Foreign Minister today that in hosting this meeting, the Vietnamese authorities had only been given 10 days notice, really. They said they first heard of the possibility on the 8th of 9th of February, but only got solid confirmation on the 14th. So that's really a very short time, particularly for a country like Vietnam. He contrasted that with the 2 months that Singapore had had. The other advantage that Singapore had was that it was able to put the meeting on an isolated island just off the coast, Sentosa. Well, no such place exists here in Hanoi, so it is going to be very problematic. The authorities, though, have approached this so far with a fairly light touch. We haven't seen too much obstruction, although there have clearly been security services moving in to the capital. We've seen high points put up with CCTV cameras, with soldiers inside them, presumably monitoring everything that's going on. One would also imagine there are snipers in place, although there isn't immediately a security threat here, but the Vietnamese will be taking no chances at all. We also understand there are very large teams from both the DPRK and the United States putting in place all the arrangements for logistics and security. We saw when we arrived a couple of days ago a huge American C-17 military cargo plane on the runway. We understand that he carried President Trump's helicopter in. We also saw a DPRK military transporter sitting on the tarmac at Hanoi Airport, which had brought a large crew of security personnel. Again, one would imagine that, as in Singapore, the close security for Kim Jong-un will be running alongside his motorcade as they did in the past. That caught quite a lot of attention. But it is going to be a huge challenge for the Vietnamese. As they said, they haven't had very much time to put on all the arrangements. We're expecting nearly as many as 3,000 journalists for this trip. So it is going to be quite complicated. This is an ancient city that doesn't easily lend itself to those kinds of very specific security arrangements. Lots of small, narrow, winding streets, and also a lot of tourists. And this is now one of Vietnam's main industries. You could see lots of foreigners here, many of them on holiday, wandering around, enjoying Hanoi, everything that Hanoi has to offer. And this is, we think, one of the reasons why Vietnam has been chosen as the location for this summit, in part because the North Koreans are quite interested in following what's become known as the Vietnamese model. Vietnam, of course, was a country that was treated for many years as an international pariah after its war with America, but it quickly got over that. It's reintegrated as part of the global community, very much as part of the global manufacturing supply chain. Many international brands are now located here. Exports are booming, as is the Vietnamese economy. And some think this is a model that the DPRK could duplicate. Also, tourism here. Tourism has been fabulously successful and continues to generate enormous profits for Vietnam, for all sorts of parts of the country, well beyond Hanoi. And it's thought that Kim Jong-un, who will, we expect, stay on for a couple of days for a proper state visit, will attempt to see some of that industrialization and also some of those tourist sites. But, of course, for the next 2 days, the next 3 days, attention is going to be focused very much on that summit. The Vietnamese Deputy Foreign Minister was very keen to stress today that at this stage, the results of that meeting are solely down to the two countries involved. The Vietnamese are here providing as much facility for them to talk as they can, but they have absolutely no control over the outcome. Again, I think there's all sorts of speculation about what might be on the table at the moment, but at the same time, we see two quite mercurial characters in Donald Trump and Kim Jong-un. So at this stage, it's dangerous to predict what the outcome of Wednesday's and Thursday's summit will be. We'll be bringing you all the news up to date. For the moment, I'm Tony Cheng in Hanoi, the Vietnamese capital, reporting live for CGTN.